More people are leaving New Zealand than ever before.
New Zealand is losing residents as
30,000 New Zealanders left for Australia last year.
A record number of New Zealanders are leaving the country.
Tens of thousands of Kiwis packed their bags and jetted off to live overseas.
70,000 Kiwis left New Zealand permanently.
You know that gut punch when you're scrolling Facebook and see your mates post from Australia? They're standing in front of their new house, a proper 4-bedroom place with a backyard where kids can actually run around without hitting a fence. The caption's casual. Finally settled in Brisbane. But what gets you is everything else in that photo. They're kids in school uniforms that actually look new. There's a trampoline in the background, the kind you've been promising your own kids for years but can never quite swing. Solar panels, double garage, decent deck for barbecues. Then someone asks how they're finding it. Your mate replies, "Best decision we ever made. Same job, earning more. Kids' school has aircon and an actual basketball court. We're saving money for the first time in years." For generations, we've been sold the line that New Zealand is paradise. Clean, green, safe. Perfect place to raise kids. Work hard, do the right thing, get ahead. That's the Kiwi dream we've been chasing, right? Well, those Facebook posts are telling a different story. That dream isn't just fading, it's dead. And it's not just one lucky family. The official data shows we're watching the biggest peacetime exodus of New Zealanders in modern history. I'm going to walk you through the real numbers, the stuff that shows exactly why families are bailing on New Zealand. By the end, you'll understand why this might be the most important decision facing Kiwi families today. Because those Facebook posts, they're not holiday snaps, they're postcards from a future New Zealand can't provide anymore.
People will make choices to go to places where they perceive there's more opportunity.
Part 1. The breaking point. Let me start with the numbers that are crushing families right now. Cost of living up nearly 4% in 12 months, but that's just the average. The real killers are the basics. Interest payments jumped 18%. Insurance costs up 16%. Even rent climbed 5%. And don't even start me about council rates. And it's getting worse. Here's what that means in real life. Families managing fine 2 years ago now face impossible choices. The grocery bill that was reasonable is now stressful. Rent that was affordable now eats 3/4 of household income. Over a quarter of New Zealanders are seriously worried about cost of living. These aren't people whinging about luxuries. These are middle-class families struggling with basics. Remember that Facebook post with the trampoline? That's not about having nice stuff. That's about having anything left over after essentials to give your kids a childhood. And if you think the cost crisis is bad, wait until you see the housing situation. The housing reality. New Zealand's housing market is officially ranked as severely unaffordable. Urban centres are the worst, but even rural areas have prices completely disconnected from local wages. Here's the reality. A basic 3-bedroom house in Queenstown costs over $1.5 million. Weekly rent in Auckland sits between $650 to $800. For many families, that's more than half their entire household income just for rent. Home ownership, once the foundation of the Kiwi dream, has become fantasy for most working families. Median house prices in major cities have blown past what middle-class families can afford. And if you somehow scrape together a deposit for $1 million house, the repayments and council rates will finish you off. This isn't just about expensive houses. This is about an entire generation locked out of the basic building block of financial security that previous generations took for granted. But when families look to the job market for solutions, they discover something even worse: the employment disaster. While families struggle with rising costs and impossible housing, New Zealand's job market is falling apart. Unemployment hit over 5%, the highest in almost 5 years. But the raw number doesn't tell the full story. Wage growth has stalled while inflation keeps eating purchasing power. Even people with jobs are worse off than 2 years ago. Businesses are cutting positions due to economic pressure and AI. Even skilled professionals face uncertainty. Fewer opportunities plus reduced real wages equals people looking overseas. Think about that Facebook comment. Same job, earning more. That shouldn't be remarkable. But in New Zealand today, you have to leave to get ahead. And when families start researching alternatives, they discover something that changes everything. Part 2. The Great Escape. The shocking numbers. You want to know how bad it's gotten? 127,000 people have packed up and left New Zealand recently. But here's the part that should make every politician sweat. 73,000 of those were actual New Zealand citizens. Think about that for a second. In a country of just over 5 million people, that's like the entire population of Hamilton just disappearing. And these aren't retirees heading to the Gold Coast for cheaper living. Most are under 35. The exact people who should be buying houses, starting families, paying taxes. Your neighbour who was a nurse, gone to Australia where she earns 30% more and can actually afford rent. That teacher who used to coach your kid's rugby team, now in Canada where schools have proper funding and he doesn't need a second job to survive. This isn't gradual brain drain anymore. This is a stampede for the exits. But here's what really stings. Where they're going and what they're finding. The Australia reality check. Last year alone, we lost 30,000 people to Australia. That's the biggest loss since 2012, and it's accelerating. You know the insulting part? These aren't people chasing some impossible dream. They're finding the same jobs they had here, except they can actually afford to live on the wages. A teacher in Sydney earns enough to rent a decent place and still have money left over. A nurse in Melbourne can save for a house deposit without eating baked beans for dinner every night. An electrician in Perth gets paid properly for overtime instead of being told we're all tightening our belts. But Australia's just the obvious choice. Kiwis are discovering opportunities everywhere that make New Zealand look like we're stuck in some economic time warp. Canada's offering what we used to have: functioning healthcare, affordable housing, and public services that actually work. Even their immigration process treats skilled workers like they're wanted, not like they're doing the country a favour by showing up. And then there are the places that are actively rolling out the red carpet. The global welcome mat. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Countries like Panama are literally designing residency programs specifically for people like us. They've figured out that skilled English-speaking professionals are worth competing for. Panama offers territorial tax systems where your overseas income isn't touched. Imagine keeping your New Zealand salary, but paying no tax on it because you're living somewhere that actually wants you there. Paraguay's even more straightforward. Show up, apply for residency, done. No proving you've got millions in the bank, no jumping through bureaucratic hoops for years. They want productive people, and they make it easy. Uruguay gives new residents 11 years without paying tax on foreign income. 11 years. That's enough time to build a completely different financial future while living somewhere with European-style infrastructure and a climate that doesn't require heating bills that cost more than your groceries. These aren't desperate third-world countries begging for anyone with a pulse. These are places that have figured out what New Zealand seems to have forgotten, that skilled, productive people have choices, and if you don't treat them well, they'll go somewhere that will. But here's the thing that's really driving this exodus, and it goes way deeper than just money. Part 3. The system breakdown. When everything stops working. You know what's really pushing families over the edge? It's not just that everything costs more, it's that nothing works properly anymore. Try getting a doctor's appointment that isn't 3 weeks away. Try finding a school that isn't overcrowded with teachers who are burned out and underpaid. Try getting your kid into a sports team that has proper facilities instead of some muddy field with goalposts held together with duct tape. The healthcare system is falling apart so badly that even the doctors and nurses are leaving. You know it's bad when the people who are supposed to fix you can't afford to stay in the country. And here's the cruel irony. As services get worse, they cost more. Council rates going up while potholes multiply. Higher taxes while waiting lists get longer. It's like paying premium prices for a broken-down car. This creates a vicious cycle that's making everything worse. Meanwhile, your mate in Brisbane sends photos of their local hospital, clean, modern, staffed properly. Their kid's school has a swimming pool, computer labs with equipment from this decade, and teachers who aren't moonlighting as Uber drivers to pay rent. The demographic death spiral. Here's the thing that should terrify every politician. The people leaving are exactly the ones we need to stay. Young, skilled, productive, in their prime earning years. The people staying, increasingly older, more likely to need services than pay for them. It's a demographic death spiral. Productive people leave, so there's less tax revenue. Less tax revenue means worse services and higher costs for everyone else. Worse services and higher costs make more productive people leave. Meanwhile, the government's brilliant solution to labour shortages is importing workers from countries where our poverty wages look like luxury. These new arrivals aren't exactly rushing to buy million-dollar houses or pay the kind of taxes that fund decent public services. So we end up with a two-speed economy where the people who built this country get priced out by their own government's policies. And this has created the most insidious problem of all: the wage suppression scam. Here's where it gets really ugly. As skilled Kiwis bail out, critical shortages appear in healthcare, education, essential services. The government's response? Import workers who will accept wages that Kiwis can no longer afford to live on. It's a perfect scam for employers. Lose workers who demand fair pay and decent conditions. Replace them with people grateful for opportunities that locals consider inadequate. A nurse leaves for Australia, where she can afford rent and still have a life. Gets replaced by someone from a developing country who's happy to work for wages that wouldn't cover a Kiwi's rent, let alone food and transport. The cruel irony is breathtaking. New Zealand loses productive citizens who know their worth, then replaces them with workers who'll accept being underpaid. This keeps labour costs artificially low while making it impossible for remaining Kiwis to afford the rising cost of everything else. We've created a system where being a New Zealand citizen is actually a disadvantage in the New Zealand job market. The choice. The moment of truth. The numbers don't lie, and the trends are accelerating. New Zealand is experiencing a crisis of confidence where its own citizens are voting with their feet, choosing to build their futures anywhere but here. This isn't about disloyalty or giving up on the country. This is about families making rational decisions based on economic reality. When other countries offer better opportunities, lower costs, functioning infrastructure, and treat skilled workers like they're actually wanted, the choice becomes pretty obvious. Think back to that Facebook post that started this whole thing. Your mate with the house, the trampoline, the kids in decent uniforms. That's not showing off. That's just normal life in a country where the system hasn't completely broken down. So here's what every New Zealand family is quietly asking themselves. Are you going to wait around hoping politicians will somehow fix decades of policy failures? Or are you going to take control of your family's future while you still have options? The families packing up and leaving aren't running away from New Zealand. They're running toward opportunity. They're choosing countries where their skills are valued, where their money goes further, where their children can actually achieve the dreams that New Zealand once promised, but can no longer deliver. The hard truth. The great exodus from New Zealand is real, and it's accelerating. Families are making incredibly difficult decisions based on economic realities that previous generations never had to face. For those choosing to leave, this isn't about abandoning your homeland or lacking loyalty. What kind of parent would you be if you didn't at least consider it? For those choosing to stay, you're not naive or stubborn. You're holding on to something valuable. Community, family connections. Whether you stay or go, you're making the best decision you can with the information you have. There's no shame in either choice. There are only families trying to build the best future they can for the people they love. The conversation about New Zealand's future isn't over. It's just beginning, and maybe, just maybe, enough people asking hard questions might finally force some hard answers. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, comment below and consider subscribing. Your input is what helps this channel grow. Stay informed, stay hopeful, and keep growing stronger.